She rode west to marry a man she'd never met, but at the edge of the property, she found a 6-year-old with tear-streaked cheeks, a shotgun too big for his hands, and a fresh grave bearing the name of the man she came to wed. The boy didn't blink when her shadow crossed the gate. His tiny hands gripped the stock of the shotgun, fingers trembling but fixed. His voice came as steady as any sheriff's, though his lip quivered and his eyes were swollen red. "He's dead, Mr. Calder. You can turn back." Etta Reeves didn't turn back. Her boots touched dirt that hadn't been shoveled long. She could see that. The grave sat neat beside a willow stump, its mound too smooth to be old. She stepped off her horse slowly, hands visible, watching the boy more than the barrel aimed her way. He couldn't be older than 6. Blonde, sharp-boned, dressed in clothes that hung off him like he'd grown too fast or not at all. His cheeks were hollow. His eyes didn't match his age. "I'm Etta," she said, her voice quiet but firm. "I came from Missouri to marry a man named Calder Whitlow." "Your pa?" The boy hesitated. Something flickered behind his stare. Pain, maybe, or a kind of confusion. "He said he was going to marry a lady from the East," the child said. "Said he'd clean the house up for you. Fix the roof. He didn't get to. He died 2 nights ago." Etta didn't reach for the gun. She didn't rush forward or cry out. Her eyes moved from the boy to the grave, then up toward the crooked porch behind him. The house was leaning, like it had grown tired of standing. A dog barked once inside. Then nothing. "I'm not turning back," she said softly. "If he's gone, I need to know what you plan to do next. And maybe you need help figuring that out." The boy didn't lower the gun, but he didn't fire either. And his eyes shimmered like someone who wasn't used to being spoken to gently. "He said if anything happened, I had to guard the land," the boy said. "Said men might come, the kind that want what ain't theirs. He said I'd know 'em by the way they smiled." Etta swallowed. "What's your name?" "Jonah," he answered, blinking hard. "Jonah Whitlow." Etta took a slow breath. "All right, Jonah, I'm not here to take anything. I came all this way, and I can't leave you here like this." The boy's hands finally lowered a few inches. Not all the way. Just enough to suggest the weight was getting to him. "You can come in," he said. "But you can't sleep in his bed." Etta nodded. She hadn't planned to. The grave out, front made that bed feel like a place she'd never touch. Still, she stepped onto the porch with care, the boards creaking under her weight. Jonah opened the door with the gun still tucked in the crook of his elbow. The house smelled of dry wood, dust, and old ash. There were 2 chairs, one overturned. A lamp that hadn't been lit in days. On the far wall, a framed drawing of a woman and child. Maybe Jonah's mother. Maybe a memory. Maybe just hope. Inside, Jonah moved like he had something to prove. He pulled down a can of beans from the shelf and lit a match with shaky hands. "I know how to heat things," he said. "And the well still runs. He showed me how to do things." Etta didn't interrupt. She watched, letting the boy keep his dignity. Only when he sat, shoulders squared like a soldier, did she ease down across from him. "What happened to him?" she asked gently. "Your pa." Jonah's lip curled down, but he didn't cry. Not yet. He coughed for 3 days, wouldn't eat, kept trying to chop wood anyway. Then he didn't wake up. "Did anyone come to help?" "No one lives close," he said. "And," he said not to go into town, "said people ask too many questions and remember things they shouldn't." Etta's stomach twisted. "What kind of things?" Jonah shrugged, but it didn't seem like ignorance. It seemed like a secret too big to carry, so he'd stopped trying to understand it. Just said they'd know him, and that I had to guard what's his. Outside, the wind changed. Dust skittered across the window pane like nails scratching to get in. Etta stood and checked the latch. She didn't ask Jonah for permission. She just moved like someone who'd learned to survive, same as him. The sun was going down, and this wasn't a house you wanted to leave wide open. She turned back just in time to see Jonah crawl under a blanket in the corner of the room, not a bed, just a pile of quilts. The shotgun lay beside him like a companion. Etta sat in the other corner, back against the wall. She didn't unpack her bag. She just waited for the quiet to settle. But quiet never truly came. Sometime past midnight, horses sounded on the ridge. Not many, maybe 2, maybe 3, but the hoofbeats were heavy, the kind that didn't bother to sneak. Jonah sat up instantly, his eyes wide in the moonlight. He reached for the shotgun. Etta already had her hand on her boots. She moved to the window, crouched low, and peered through the warped glass. Shadows bobbed along the trail. One rider carried a lantern. They weren't looking for directions. Get under the floorboards, she whispered to Jonah. Now, he froze. But the gun? They'll shoot before they talk, Etta snapped, her voice still hushed but urgent. I'll keep them busy. Jonah hesitated, then lifted one of the wooden slats in the corner and crawled beneath. Etta set the board back, heart thudding, then moved to the door just as the knock came. It was loud, brazen. No ghost would knock like that. She opened it. 3 men stood outside, dusty, mean-eyed. One had a toothpick dangling from his mouth. Another kept glancing at the grave. The third stepped forward. Evening, ma'am. Didn't expect to see company up here. I could say the same, Etta replied. The man's smile didn't touch his eyes. He around, Whitlow. He's not home, she said. Mind if we look around? I do. The man's eyes narrowed, and his hand moved to the butt of his pistol. That's so. Etta didn't blink. There's a child asleep inside. You come in guns first. You'll answer to me. A beat of silence. Then the man chuckled. Feisty for a bride. Etta didn't respond. She just kept her eyes steady. She wasn't armed, but she didn't flinch. We'll be back, he said finally. And if you're smart, you'll be gone by then. The riders turned. Dust kicked up in their wake. Etta closed the door, heart pounding, then lifted the floorboard. Jonah crawled out, eyes wide. Those were the ones, he whispered. He said they might come. Etta looked at the grave, at the land, at the boy. Then she made a choice. I'm not leaving you, she said, but we're gonna need a plan. Jonah didn't sleep again that night. Neither did Etta. By the time the sky lightened and shadows pulled back into the scrub, Etta had pulled the old chair to the window and kept watch, one hand always resting on the small revolver she'd taken from her saddlebag once the men rode off. It wasn't much, 5 rounds, worn handle, but it was more than nothing. Jonah stayed close to her all morning, his usual self-sufficiency frayed and quiet. He still wore his boots, even under the quilt, as if ready to run if needed. They shared a breakfast of scorched beans and stale biscuits. Etta found herself watching Jonah more than the window now. The boy chewed slow, deliberate, like wasting food was a sin. He didn't complain, didn't cry, and when Etta asked if he had any family, he just shook his head once and said, "You can't trust folks who leave." Around midday, Etta stepped onto the porch to stretch her legs, eyes narrowing against the sun. The grave stood freshly packed, the shovel still leaning beside it. She walked toward it slowly, boots crunching the dirt, and knelt beside the headstone. It wasn't much, a slab of barnwood, carved with a pocket knife. C.W. and nothing more. C.W. Calder Whitlow, the man she was supposed to marry. The man who'd written her letters filled with hope and promises, and careful sketches of the land, as if his pencil could soften the roughness of the West. She'd only seen him once, years back, when he passed, through her father's general store in Jefferson City. He was taller than most, with broad shoulders and a scar across his brow. He said little then, but later came the letters. Dozens, sent with care, sealed in wax. And when her father's debts swallowed their home and her younger sisters found work in Kansas City mills, Etta had little left tying her to anything but Calder's words. Now he was under the dirt, and the only part of him left walked in small boots and kept a shotgun close. Back inside, Jonah was standing beside the window, peering through a knot in the wood. They ain't coming in daylight, he said. Not unless they're stupid. Etta nodded. Then we have time. For what? To fix this place up like a fortress. Jonah looked at her like she'd gone soft in the head, but when she started dragging a wooden crate against the ducker to reinforce it, he joined in. Together they barricaded windows with shelves and nailed loose boards shut. They moved the kitchen table to the corner near the wood stove, where they could both crouch low and see the door and the rear window in one glance. While Etta worked, she asked questions, not probing, just enough to understand. Jonah didn't. Remember his mother well, just a blue shawl and lullabies sung in German. She died when he was 3, sickness Calder couldn't name. Since then, it had been the two of them, living quiet, avoiding towns. Calder took jobs, guarding freight, riding with trail crews, but always came back. Did your pa ever talk about why he left Missouri? She asked, catching the boy off guard. He shrugged. Said folks back east don't let a man forget his mistakes. That wasn't much, but it was enough to make her wonder what Calder had been running from, and if the men who came last night were part of it. That afternoon, they heard another horse. Just one. Etta grabbed the revolver, pressed Jonah behind her, and opened the door slow. The rider wasn't like the others. He was older, grey-bearded, slouched, his horse dusty but well-fed. He raised both hands when he saw her and tipped his hat. Mom, he called. Name's Roy Taggart. I run the mail line through these parts. Got a letter addressed to Calder Whitlow. Saw smoke from your chimney. Thought someone might be home. Etta didn't lower the gun. He passed. Roy nodded, a flicker of regret crossing his face. Shame. Good man. Quiet. This letter's marked urgent. Came out of Denver 2 weeks ago. Figured he ought to get it. Etta stepped forward slowly, took the envelope. It was sealed in red wax, no return address. She didn't open it until Roy tipped his hat again and rode off. Inside, Jonah sat cross-legged on the floor, watching her every move. She broke the seal and unfolded the thick paper. The handwriting was sharp, deliberate. Calder, we found you. We're coming for what you took. And if you're dead, we'll take it from whoever you left behind. J. Rolanetta read it twice before folding it again. She didn't tell Jonah what it said. Instead, she stood, set the envelope on the shelf, above the hearth, and began taking stock of what they had. Half a bag of flour, a tin of lard, 3 candles, and enough bullets to count on one hand. No rifle, just her pistol, the shotgun, and a shovel if it came to that. That night, Jonah didn't speak at all. He sat by the hearth with his knees drawn to his chest, listening. Every gust of wind made him twitch. Etta watched the windows, the darkness, thick beyond them, knowing that the Rowland name wasn't one you ignored. She'd heard it before, back in Missouri. Jeb Rowland and his brothers. They were once part of a posse turned outlaw, men who traded badges for bounty. Jeb was known for taking more than his share, money, cattle, lives. Calder must have crossed him once, and now the boy was the debt. Just past midnight, a knock came, not a loud one, not like before. This one was soft, almost polite. Etta moved slow, pistol in hand. Jonah pressed flat behind the wood stove. She opened the door a crack and saw a woman, thin, red hair, wearing a cloak too fine for this land. Please, the woman said. I need help. My horse threw me. Etta's gut twisted. Nothing about the woman fit. Where from? Etta asked, not budging. The woman's eyes darted left, then right. South Ridge. My brother's nearby. I can't walk far. Etta stepped onto the porch, keeping the revolver raised. The night was quiet, too quiet. Then, from behind the woodpile, boots crunched. 3 men surged forward. The woman dropped to the ground and rolled out of the way. She'd been bait. Etta fired once, missed, then slammed the door shut just as bullets tore through the frame. Wood splintered. Jonah screamed. Etta dragged the table over, flipped it on its side, pushed Jonah behind it. Shots rang out again. Glass shattered. The walls shook. They were trying to scare her, flush her out. She waited, counting seconds, breathing, steady. Then silence fell again. "Etta," Jonah whispered. "They're gonna set fire." He was right. It's what she would have done if she were outside, trying to smoke someone out. And there, just a flicker through the window, a torch. Etta ran to the back of the house, yanked the water bucket, tossed it to Jonah. "We get one shot," she said. "We wait for them to get close, then douse the fire before it takes." The first torch hit the porch. Flames licked the boards. Etta opened the door, fired once, hit a man in the leg. He screamed. The others scattered. She kicked the torch off the porch, stomped it. Jonah tossed water over the smouldering boards. The second torch missed the roof by inches. Another shot cracked past her shoulder. They were pulling back now, laughing. "We'll be back," someone called. "And we'll bring enough rope for both of you." Then the hooves faded. Etta stood in the ruined doorway, chest heaving, smoke in her lungs. She turned to Jonah, who was gripping the bucket like a shield. "They won't stop," he said. "No," Etta replied. "They won't." She looked at the boy, too small, too brave, and made a promise she hadn't spoken since her mother's funeral. "I won't let them take you." And this time, Jonah didn't argue. He just nodded, and for the first time, he let her hold him. By morning, Etta had made up her mind. They couldn't stay there, not without a miracle, and miracles didn't ride in on horseback in the West. What they had was barely standing. The porch scorched, windows shot out, the walls bleeding light, through bullet holes. Jonah hadn't said a word since the ambush, and Etta hadn't slept, just sat beside him with a hand on his shoulder and eyes on the horizon. He finally broke the silence as she tightened the saddle straps on Calder's old mare. "Where we gonna go?" Etta didn't lie. "I don't know yet, but we'll find a place." Jonah didn't argue, just picked up the shotgun and slung it over his shoulder like he'd done it 100 times before. He looked smaller in the light, skin pale under the layer of dirt and bruises, but there was something unshakable in the way he stood. Like roots had grown through his boots and into the ground, and she had to tug hard to pull him away. They left just before sunup, heading north through the ravine behind the house where the brush was too thick for horses to follow easy, and the terrain broke sightlines fast. The trail was rough, barely a trail at all, but it was better than waiting to die in a house that already looked like a coffin. Etta rode with Jonah behind her, arms wrapped around her waist, head pressed between her shoulder blades. They travelled in silence, listening. The echo of hooves might have been real or imagined. Etta kept glancing over her shoulder anyway. By noon, the sun was cruel again. It soaked through her blouse, turned sweat into salt on her brow. They stopped at a creek to rest the horse and drink from their hands. Jonah barely said a word, just kept scanning the trees like he expected ghosts to step out of them. Etta understood. That kind of fear didn't let go easy. "What did they mean?" he asked suddenly. "About what Pa took?" Etta dipped her fingers into the water again, letting it run between them before answering. "Your father made enemies. Out here, sometimes that's all it takes." "Did he steal something?" She met his eyes. Maybe. Or maybe he just didn't give something back. Jonah didn't press her more, but she knew that wouldn't be the end of it. Children grew up fast when the world made them feel hunted. She remembered her youngest brother after their father was buried, the way he'd clenched his fists whenever anyone walked through their yard, like one small body could protect everything left. They pushed on until the light grew thin and the trees cast long shadows across the narrow trail. Etta's plan, if it could be called that, was to reach the old stage station out near Widow's Hill. It hadn't seen traffic in over a year, but it sat high on a bluff and had strong doors. She'd passed it once before on her way in, noted the stonework and the rusted iron latch that still looked solid. Maybe they could make it through a night there. Maybe longer. As they rode, the terrain opened up slightly into a shallow basin of wind-worn rock and low sage. Etta spotted movement before Jonah did. A flicker near the edge of a dry arroyo, just too quick to be natural. She pulled the horse to a stop and raised a hand. "Get down," she whispered, sliding off and pulling Jonah with her. They dropped into the grass, listening. Then came the sound, quiet but unmistakable. Metal on leather. Someone drawing a blade. She motioned Jonah toward the gully and crept forward on her elbows until she had a clearer view. 3 of them, not the same as before. These men were leaner, sharper. One held a long knife and was skinning a rabbit on a flat rock. Another stood nearby, cleaning his rifle. The third, taller, with hair tied back, watched the horizon with a spyglass. They didn't look like the laughing brutes who'd come to the cabin. These men were quieter, focused, professional. Etta's stomach turned. Bounty hunters. She crawled back to Jonah. "We can't go that way." He didn't ask why, just nodded and followed as she led the horse along a ridge path that veered away from the station and into higher ground. They hiked for hours, finding shade only where the rocks dipped low enough to hide them. Etta's legs burned. Jonah stumbled once, scraped his palms, but didn't cry. When night came, they camped beneath a ledge, no fire, just a blanket wrapped tight, and the sound of wind blowing sand through cracks in the stone. Jonah was the one who finally spoke. "If they catch us, what will they do?" Etta didn't answer right away. Then, "They'll try to scare us, make us tell them what they think Calder hid. And if we don't know, they won't believe that." Silence again. Then a whisper, "I won't let them hurt you." It took everything Etta had not to pull him into her arms right then. "It's not your job to protect me." Jonah looked up. "It was Pa's job to protect both of us, and he's gone." They didn't sleep much. Dreams were dangerous out here, too close to memory, too far from safety. By dawn, they reached the remains of an old telegraph shack nestled in a cut between 2 hills. The roof was half gone, the walls crooked, but it was stone, and the door held. Etta checked the perimeter while Jonah gathered sticks and dry moss for a small, smokeless fire. They didn't dare light it, but it gave them comfort to pretend they could. Inside, Etta found a rusted lockbox under a pile of timber. Most of it was junk, old wires, a broken knife, faded telegram slips. But at the bottom, wrapped in oilcloth, was a map. She unfolded it on the ground. Jonah leaned over it with wide eyes. It wasn't a territory map. This one was hand-drawn, rough, but marked in a way that Calder's letters had been. Detailed, purposeful. A red circle marked a spot near the edge of a canyon labeled Gallows, Drop. Next to it, scribbled in fading pencil, "Let the dead keep their secrets." Jonah pointed. "That's where he buried it, isn't it?" Etta swallowed. "If there's anything to bury." "He kept this map here," Jonah said. "Far from the house. That means it mattered." She nodded slowly. "Then that's where we go." They left the shack by noon, traveling light. Etta buried the rest of the map beneath stones. No need to leave clues. They followed the ridgeline east, keeping low, eyes sharp. The land began to rise, sharp and jagged, cutting the sky into slivers. Gallows Drop wasn't far. Another day, maybe 2. They camped again in a dry cave, and just before sleep, Jonah whispered, "You think my pa meant for us to find that map?" Etta stared at the dark above them. "I think he knew this day might come." Then, deep in the night, the sound of a twig snapping. Too close. Etta was, up in an instant, revolver in hand, motioning Jonah to stay still. She crept toward the mouth of the cave. A silhouette stood there, unmoving. Then a voice. "You're Calder's girl, ain't you?" Etta raised the gun. "Who's asking?" The figure stepped forward into the faint moonlight. He was young, barely more than 20, dust-covered, lean, but his hands didn't shake. "My name's Rafe. I was with Calder once, years ago. He saved my life." His voice cracked, dry with travel. "When I heard what happened, I came to find the boy." Etta didn't lower her weapon. "You travel alone?" He nodded. Ain't many left who still owe Calder a favor. But I do. Behind her, Jonah stirred. Etta could feel his stare, waiting. Prove it, she said. Something only a friend would know. Rafe swallowed. He had a burn scar on his left shoulder, shaped like a star. Said he got it when a Comanche saved him from a fire when he was 15. Said he'd always pay that debt forward. Etta paused. Then slowly, she lowered the pistol. Rafe exhaled. I know where Roland's headed, and I know what he wants. Etta's heart stilled. Then you better start talking. Rafe didn't come inside right away. He stood outside the cave, with the moonlight slicing across his face, waiting for Etta's permission, like a dog not sure if he was being called in or chased off. She kept her revolver drawn, even after she'd lowered it, watching the way his hands moved, slow, deliberate, like he knew what a twitch too fast might earn him. Jonah sat up behind her, blanket tangled around his legs, eyes big and unreadable. He hadn't seen many strangers in his life, and this one wasn't just strange. He was a hinge the whole world might turn on. Finally, Etta nodded. Come in, but keep your hands where I can see 'em. Rafe ducked inside. The cave wasn't deep, just enough room for the three of them and their bags. But the walls closed around them like shelter, and maybe that was enough for now. You say you knew Calder, Etta said, settling herself between Rafe and Jonah. That puts you in a very small group. Rafe set his pack down carefully. Rode with him in the Black Hills for almost 6 months. Wasn't friends exactly. Nobody was friends with Calder. But he kept me alive when I was too dumb to do it myself. Why now? She asked. Why? Come find us now. He looked down. I was working silver out near Dryhook when I heard about what happened. Word got around fast. Calder's place burned. Boy gone. Woman seen riding north with a kid. Etta's stomach turned. They're hunting us. Rafe nodded. Roland put a price on the boy's head. Jonah's voice was a whisper. Why? Because, Rafe said, glancing at him, your daddy took something that doesn't belong to any man, and Roland thinks you're the only person alive who knows where he put it. Etta leaned forward, the map in her pocket suddenly heavy. What is it? Rafe shook his head. I don't know exactly. Calder didn't talk much, but the men who came looking for him in Elkhorn weren't the type to chase after trinkets. One of them wore a Union officer's coat with gold buttons. Other looked like he'd come from Mexico City with blood on his boots. Military, Etta said. Something worse. Men who work for governments but answer to none. Jonah looked between them. But why my pa? Because he knew how to disappear, Rafe said simply. He'd vanish into the hills and reappear, 100 miles west with a new name and $100. He was a bounty hunter, yeah, but more than that. Calder buried things, secrets, money, maybe bodies, and people paid him to make things go away. Etta pulled out the map, unwrapped the oilcloth and spread it on the cave floor. Rafe's eyes narrowed as he scanned the hand-drawn markings. That's Gallows Drop, he said. I know the place. Steep canyon. Wind howls through it like it's screaming. They say you can't hear a man yell at the bottom. It's a good place to hide something, all right. It's where we're going, Etta said. Rafe looked up. Then I'm going with you. She didn't answer right away. But something in Jonah's eyes, hope, or maybe just tiredness, softened her guard. 3 was better than 2. And Rafe didn't carry himself like a liar. He had the look of a man who'd buried people and remembered all their names. All right, she said finally, but we ride at first light. And if you even think of pulling something, you won't have to finish that sentence, he said, already pulling his blanket from his pack. They left before dawn. Rafe had a second horse tethered a mile from the cave, lean and dust-colored, but fast. He rode ahead, scouting the trail. Etta kept Jonah close, her revolver holstered, but always within reach. They moved quick and silent through the ridges, the map guiding them past known passes and into slivers of wilderness, too narrow for patrols or bounty men. By the second day, Etta spotted movement again in the distance. Riders, slow and methodical, cutting across the flat like hounds sniffing for a trail. Rafe led them through a dry riverbed and into a box canyon where they waited 3 hours under the sun while the riders passed 100 yards above them, never looking down. Jonah asked, "Why don't they just go straight to Gallows Drop, themselves?" "Because they don't know where Calder hid it," Rafe explained. "Just a location ain't enough. You gotta know where in the canyon. That map's the key." "They know about it?" Etta asked. Rafe shrugged. "If they don't, yet they will soon." That night, they camped beside a skeletal tree, wind keening through its dead branches. Etta caught Rafe staring into the fire. "What else aren't you telling me?" she asked. He didn't look away. "Calder wasn't just hiding from Roland. There's another man." "Who?" "They call him Tolliver Crane, ex-lieutenant. Fought for the Union but didn't stop when the war ended. Turned mercenary. Took jobs nobody else would. Calder once told me he made a deal with Crane to protect someone, long time ago. But he broke it. Said some things weren't worth the price. And now Crane's hunting everyone who ever crossed him. Roland's just his teeth. The real danger rides behind." Etta stared into the flames, the pieces falling slowly into place. Calder hadn't just been a ghost with a gun. He was a man carrying debts he couldn't pay, and Jonah was the interest still collecting. They reached Gallows Drop the next evening. The canyon was a knife cut into the earth, wide and jagged and steep enough to make a man dizzy just looking over the edge. Wind rose from the bottom like breath from a sleeping giant, hot and foul, and the rocks near the rim were etched with strange patterns, scratches, almost symbols, half worn by time and storms. Rafe dismounted and walked the edge, scanning. "There," he said, pointing to a narrow path that dipped down into the canyon wall. "Trail's old, crumbling, but it'll hold." Etta tied the horses. Jonah held her hand as they followed Rafe down the slope, boots sliding on loose rock, dust in their throats. Halfway down, Rafe stopped. "There," he said again, pointing at a shelf of stone hidden by a jutting boulder. Etta climbed to it. At first, nothing. Then she saw the mark, just like the one on the map. A triangle carved into the stone, barely visible unless you knew to look. She knelt and brushed aside gravel. A metal box. Heavy. Rusted. Locked. Rafe handed her a crowbar. "Let's find out what Calder was willing to die for." Etta wedged it under the lid and pried. The lock snapped. Inside. Papers. Dozens. Maps. Letters. One sealed in wax. And beneath it all, a cloth bag. She opened it. Gold, not coins. Teeth. Rings. Melted shapes. Jonah stared. "Is it treasure?" Rafe was already reading one of the letters. His face went pale. "This isn't about money," he said slowly. "These are records, names, places, people Calder was paid to make disappear. Some of them still alive. Some working in government. This is insurance." Etta looked down at the gold. "And that? Payment," Rafe said. "Or proof. Maybe both." Then a shot rang out. The bullet missed Etta's head by inches, splintering the stone beside. "Huh! Down!" Rafe shouted, dragging Jonah behind the boulder. Etta flattened herself to the canyon wall. Dust rained down. Above them, 3 figures appeared on the rim, rifles raised. "They followed us," Rafe hissed. Jonah pulled the metal box to himself, clutching it like a shield. Etta drew her revolver and fired once, blindly. The figures scattered. "We can't stay here," she said. "They'll pin us down." "There's a cave lower down," Rafe said. "I saw it on the way in." "Go," she told him. "Take Jonah. I'm not leaving you. I'll hold them off. Buy you time." "No!" Jonah shouted. But Rafe was already grabbing him, pulling him back down the slope, away from the gunfire. Etta stood alone, back to the cliff, 6 bullets in her chamber and death above. She smiled grimly. Let them come. The second bullet split a rock beside Etta's cheek, showering her in grit. She didn't flinch. She braced herself against the canyon wall, cocked her revolver, and counted footsteps. Above her, the rim creaked with movement, boots shifting, gravel sliding. They were spreading out, trying to find a clean angle to shoot down. She didn't give them one. Her body was flush against the stone, but her mind raced ahead, calculating. Rafe had said there was a cave farther down, and if he could get Jonah there, maybe they had a chance. Maybe. Another shot cracked, then another, closer. So close she felt the burn of air as it passed her arm. She pivoted, fired up toward the shadow of a man moving across the ridge. He jerked, stumbled, but didn't fall. Damn! She ducked back, heart pounding. Below her, Rafe and Jonah were halfway to the next ledge. She watched Jonah scramble on hands and knees, gripping the metal, boxed to his chest like it was breathing. Rafe stayed behind him, one hand steadying the boy, the other holding a rifle tight to his side, unused for now. Etta fired again, just to buy time. The sound echoed so loud it bounced back at her, screaming across the rocks. She moved then, feet sliding dangerously close to the edge, and descended fast, too fast, boot soles skidding on loose gravel. A fall here wouldn't kill her, but it would slow her down enough to get them all killed. She reached them breathless. Rafe pulled her behind the ledge as another shot whined overhead. "They're splitting up," he said. "One stayed at the top. 2 moving down from the north side. They'll be here in minutes." "What about the cave?" 50 feet down. Tight squeeze. But it opens up inside. Etta looked at Jonah. His cheeks were pale with dust, his breath shallow, but his arms didn't let go of that box. "You hold on to that, no matter what," she told him. He nodded, lips trembling, but his eyes locked with hers. Steady. The boy was scared, but he wasn't breaking, not yet. They scrambled down the last. Stretch, crouched low. The sun had fallen behind the canyon rim, leaving the walls steeped in blue and shadow. Rafe found the cave mouth, a slit behind an overhang, barely wide enough for a man to slide through sideways. He motioned Jonah in first. The boy squeezed inside, dragging the box with him. Etta followed, then Rafe, turning his body sideways, to keep his rifle from catching on the stone. Inside, the cave widened suddenly into a narrow chamber tall enough to stand in. The air was thick, old, carrying the scent of something long sealed. Rafe struck a match and held it up. The flame flickered against walls marked with old soot and something stranger. Paintings, faded symbols, a spiral, a man with 3 eyes. Etta stared, uncertain if they were native markings or something else entirely. "They'll find the entrance," Rafe said. "We can't trap ourselves." "We don't need to," Etta replied. "Let them come. Let them think we're cornered." Rafe raised an eyebrow. "Got a plan?" "No, but I've got rage," she said flatly. "And 6 bullets." The first outlaw appeared minutes later, gun first, head second. Etta was waiting, crouched beside the entrance. As the barrel poked through, she fired. A short, violent crack. The man yelped and pulled back, cursing. Blood spattered the stone. "They're here," he shouted. "Good. Let them all come." Rafe helped her drag a slab of stone across the cave mouth. Partial cover, not a full barricade. Enough to slow them, not enough to trap themselves in. Etta crouched behind it, listening to the voices outside. "Grow louder." Jonah stayed in the back, breathing hard, the box cradled in his lap like a baby. The next shot came from farther away. Rafe ducked and whispered, "They're trying to flush us." "Let them try." More gunfire. Dust rained from the ceiling. Jonah pressed his face into his knees. Etta stood suddenly, popped off 2 quick shots, then dropped back down. A scream echoed from outside, cut short. "Hit one," she said, not sure where. Then silence. Not the calm kind. No, this was the kind of quiet that clung too long. Rafe shifted, peering through a crack. "What do you see?" Etta asked. "No movement." She didn't like that. Suddenly, from behind them, crack. Stones split above Jonah's head. They spun. Another entrance, small and forgotten, half covered by moss and shadow. A second shooter. Clever. Etta grabbed Jonah, pulling him away from the ricochet. Rafe returned fire. The echo was deafening. A shape darted through the opening, vanished again. "We're boxed in," Rafe said grimly. "No," Etta said. "We're bait." She handed Jonah to Rafe. "Take him, out the front, while they focus on me." "You're not serious. I've got a better chance drawing their fire. They want me dead. Him captured." "I'm not leaving you." She looked at him hard. "You swore to Calder. Now swear to me." Rafe clenched his jaw, then nodded once. Fast, angry. She didn't wait. Etta surged out of cover and sprinted for the second exit, emptying her revolver. As she ran, the chamber lit up with muzzle flashes. Rocks shattered. Pain bloomed along her left arm, grazed. But it worked. The men outside shouted, shifted, drew their guns toward her silhouette, and didn't notice the boy and the man slipping, out the front, silent as ghosts. Etta dove behind a stone pillar deeper in the cave, gasping, blood slick on her sleeve. She pressed her back to the rock and reloaded with shaking fingers. Outside, a voice called out, "Well, ain't this something?" The widow makes a stand. Etta's heart froze. That voice, low, snake oil smooth, wasn't one of the outlaws from earlier. No, this was someone else entirely. She peered over the rock, and there he was, tall, lean, grey in the beard and cold in the eyes. Tolliver Crane. He stood like he'd never once feared a bullet in his life. His men flanked him, 2 down, 4 still standing, 1 bandaged and limping, but all with their guns raised. Crane stepped forward. "You got something of mine," he said. Etta stood. Her revolver stayed down, but her spine straightened. "I have what Calder gave me. That's not the same as yours." Crane smirked. "That's where you're wrong." His voice held that quiet kind of threat, the kind you don't hear until it's already too late. "I let Roland chase you because I wanted to see what you'd do," Crane went on, "where you'd run, who you'd trust. And now I know." "You'll never find the boy," she said. Crane's eyes gleamed. "Already did." Her stomach dropped. He stepped aside, and behind him, Jonah, held at gunpoint by a man with a red scarf and a split lip. Rafe stood too, on his knees. Blood on his temple. One eye swollen shut. "No," Etta whispered. "You made it too easy," Crane said. "Left a trail a blind mule could follow." Etta raised her revolver. Crane shook his head. "Don't." He motioned. The man with the red scarf stepped forward, gun against Jonah's head. Etta froze. "You fire," Crane said. "He dies." Jonah was staring at her, not crying, just watching, trusting. Crane extended a hand. "The box. Give it to me." Etta didn't move. "You got 5 seconds." Her breath trembled. "You'll kill us anyway." "Probably," Crane said, "but at least you'll die knowing you saved the boy." Jonah's lips parted, his voice tiny. "Don't." Crane's fingers curled. 4. Rafe struggled. "Don't give it up." 3. Etta looked down at the box, then back at Jonah. 2. Her hand twitched. 1. She made her choice. Etta hurled the box into the canyon behind her, over the ledge, into the dark. Crane's eyes widened. He lunged. So did his men. But in that split second of confusion, Etta fired. 1, 2, 3. Rafe shoved his captor, teeth bared. Jonah dropped low. Chaos exploded. Bullets ricocheted off stone. Crane shouted, dived. But Etta wasn't aiming to kill. She was aiming to run. She grabbed Jonah's hand and bolted down the trail. Rafe stumbled beside them, blood streaking his face. Behind them, Crane roared, "Find that box!" But it was gone, swallowed by the canyon, and with it, the only leverage they had. They didn't stop running. Not until darkness swallowed them whole. The desert swallowed them. After hours of running, then walking, then barely crawling through a dried-up riverbed lined with jagged rock and thornbrush, Etta, Rafe, and Jonah collapsed beneath a fallen cottonwood in the gulch where shadows lay thick and cool. Their chests rose and fell with the kind of breath that didn't fill the lungs. It just barely kept them from dying. Neither Rafe nor Etta dared to speak yet. Every rustle could still be a man with a gun. Every breeze could carry Crane's voice, if they weren't careful. Jonah clung to Etta's waist, shaking, silent. The child had no tears left. The box was gone. And with it, the last trace of whatever Calder Wren had entrusted to Etta. She pressed her bloodied hand to her ribs, breathing through clenched teeth. The greys from the cave fight had turned dark and swollen. Rafe was worse. His temples still bled, and he was blinking like the world wouldn't hold still. But there was no stopping. Not yet. "Do you think they'll believe it's gone?" she asked quietly. Rafe wiped blood from his brow and looked off into the canyon's throat. "Crane will tear that gorge apart stone by stone. When he doesn't find it, he'll realize the truth." "That I didn't throw it," she said. Rafe met her eyes. "Did you?" Etta didn't answer. She just looked at Jonah. The boy's fingers dug into the fabric of her skirt like he'd fall off the earth if he let go. She pulled him closer, let him bury his face against her ribs. "We've got 2 hours till dawn," she said. "Then we run again." But Rafe's hand caught her arm gently. No, he shook his head. "We can't outrun them, not like this. And if you really didn't throw the box, then Crane won't stop hunting us. He'll burn towns to the ground just to find it. And if we go back, he kills us outright. Unless," Rafe said, and his eyes gleamed faintly, "we stop running." Etta frowned. "What do you mean?" He stood, slowly, stiffly, and looked out across the gulch. "We make a stand." She wanted to laugh. It sounded so absurd. A stand against Crane, with a half-conscious man, a battered child, and a wounded woman. It wasn't even a plan. It was madness. "You'd rather die now than later?" she asked. "I'd rather die making him bleed," Rafe replied. "And I think you would too." She didn't speak, but in the pit of her stomach, something shifted. Not agreement, not yet, but the faintest flicker of memory. Her father, once standing over a map at dawn, his voice like flint striking steel. "Outrunning death just gives it more time to catch up. You want to live? Turn around." Etta rose. They couldn't outrun Crane, but maybe they didn't have to. Maybe they just had to draw him in. She looked at Rafe. "We'll need more than bullets." "I've got dynamite," he said. She blinked. "What?" "In the cave, hidden near the back wall. Calder kept supplies stashed everywhere. You're just now telling me this." Didn't seem like the right time. Etta almost laughed. Then the laughter faded. "All right," she said. "We draw them in. We set the charges. We give him what he thinks he wants." Jonah sat up, his face pale. "The box." Etta knelt in front of him. "Do you still have it?" The boy nodded. He dug into his pack, then into the lining, past the torn flap of canvas and into the gut of it. And from the shadows, he pulled a smaller box, no bigger than his hand, carved from ashwood, banded in iron. "You had it all this time." Jonah nodded. "The big one was empty. You told me to protect it, so I put this in my pack instead." Etta stared at him. A child, barely 8 years old, and yet somehow the calmest of them all. She brushed his hair back gently. "Smart boy," she whispered. She held the box up. Its edges were smooth, worn with handling. No keyhole, no hinges, just a faint seam across the middle, like it split into 2 perfect halves. Rafe leaned closer. "What's in it?" "I don't know," Etta admitted. "Calder never told me. Maybe now's the time to find out." But Etta shook her head. "Not yet. Let Crane think it's his. If we open it and it's nothing, we've lost our edge." Rafe nodded slowly. "All right, let's get to work." By the time the sun began to stain the sky red again, they had returned to the cave. Etta's limbs ached with every movement, but the adrenaline kept her from noticing much. Rafe showed her the stash, hidden behind a thin wall of stone they'd overlooked before. Inside, 2 sticks of dynamite, an old oilskin of black powder, a box of rusted nails, and a long length of wire. Not much, but maybe enough. They rigged the entrance first, loose stones lined with powder, a tripwire strung low across the path, then the inner chamber, with the dynamite wired to a stone pillar. Rafe set the charge so that it would blow the roof inward, not out, collapse the cave, bury it, and anyone inside, with the secret still breathing in the stone. Etta placed the decoy box on a ledge by the wall, wrapped in Calder's old satchel. Visible. Tempting. Jonah was tucked deep behind the rear wall, where the explosion wouldn't reach. Etta knelt beside him before they took position. "You remember what to do?" she asked. He nodded, lips trembling. "If anything goes wrong, you run. Take the side path, head for the riverbed. Don't stop for anything." Jonah looked at her with wide, terrified eyes. "Will you come after me?" She didn't lie. "I'll try." She kissed his forehead, then left. Outside the cave, the morning wind howled, and from across the ridge, they came. Crane rode at the front, coat flapping behind him like the wings of some carrion crow. His men flanked him, less now, maybe 4 in total, but enough. Their horses thundered down the slope, then slowed at the ravine. Crane raised a hand, halted. He dismounted, walked forward alone. Etta stepped out from the shadow of the rocks. "Come for your box?" she asked. Crane smiled faintly. "That's the idea. It's in there." He glanced behind her. "So it is." She waited for the trick, for the backup gunman, for the ambush, but Crane simply stood there, eyes cold. "I suppose you know what's inside it." "No, neither did Calder," he said. That was the problem. Etta frowned. He stole something that didn't belong to him. Crane went on. "Passed it down to a woman who doesn't understand its worth." "And you do?" "I know enough to know what men would pay for it," he said. "Enough to start wars over, enough to end them." Etta's fingers twitched near her hip. "Let me guess," she said. "You're going to open it right here, in front of me." "No," Crane said simply. "I'm going to kill you. Then take it. Then open it." He took a step forward. Etta didn't move. Another step. Her fingers slid behind her, where the wire lay in wait. Crane raised his hand, and Etta pulled. The first explosion tore through the front of the cave, a flash of fire, dust, and rock. Crane stumbled back, shouting. His men surged forward, firing blindly. Rafe fired from behind the ridge, cutting down one before ducking back. Crane turned, eyes wild, but then the second charge blew. The cave mouth caved inward, stone and fire swallowing itself. The shockwave hurled Etta backward. Her ears rang. She hit the ground hard. But as the smoke cleared, she saw what she needed to see. The satchel was gone, buried. Crane's scream echoed across the canyon. He shoved his men aside, clawed through the rubble, searching, and found nothing. Etta crawled away, vision blurring. From the edge of the ridge, a small hand reached down. Jonah. He was there, eyes wide, arms outstretched. She reached for him, but before their fingers touched, a shadow fell across them. Crane. He wasn't done yet, not even close. Crane's boots crunched into the gravel above them, black against the blown-out sky, dust thick around his coat and sleeves, as though he'd crawled from the fire itself. One hand was clutched around his pistol, the other was bleeding, knuckles torn open from clawing at the cave-in, and his eyes were blistered red, not from the blast, but from what he hadn't found. The box was gone, buried, burned, stolen. It didn't matter. What mattered was that he didn't have it, and that they might still. Etta rose slowly, shielding Jonah with one arm. Blood dripped from her elbow. Her hearing was still half muted by the explosions. She could feel the warmth of the boy's breath. Behind her back, he was still alive, and she wasn't going to let that change now. Crane leveled the pistol at her. "Where is it?" he hissed. Etta didn't answer. Behind the rocks, Rafe shifted, hidden from sight, rifle in hand. He had one shot left. One. But he wouldn't take it unless he was sure. Not with the boy so close. Crane's face twitched. "You think you can outlast me, girl? I've burned towns. I've bled men dry over lesser things. Whatever Calder gave you, whatever secrets you think you're guarding, they're mine." "You don't even know what's in it," Etta said, voice hoarse. Crane stepped closer. "Don't need to. All I need to know is the man who paid me to find it, and what he's willing to do to the people who get in his way." Her heart froze. "Someone hired you?" Crane smirked. "You think I care about Wren's secrets? No, but men with empires care, and they pay well for their ghosts." A dry wind passed. The ground underfoot was still trembling from the last of the dynamites. Echo. In the stillness, Etta realized how close she was to death. Not the kind that came quick with a bullet, but the slow kind, the kind that unraveled you. If Crane took Jonah now, there would be no stopping what came next. "You shoot me," she said quietly. "You'll never find it." Crane didn't flinch. "Then I shoot the boy." Jonah whimpered. Etta stepped between them fully, hands up. "Don't!" Crane tilted his head. "You think I won't?" "I think you don't know what you're holding," Etta said. "You've been chasing this ghost so long, you've forgotten what it even was." She took a slow step forward, then another. Crane kept the gun steady, but something flickered behind his eyes. "I know Calder," she said, "better than you ever did. And I know he didn't hide that box because of what was inside it. He hid it because of who was after it." "Who?" "Not men," she said. "Empires." That made him pause. Etta pressed forward. "You deliver that box to whoever paid you, they'll kill you the moment they've opened it. Because you're a loose thread. And men like that don't leave threads hanging." Crane's jaw clenched. Rafe's finger tightened on the trigger, but he still didn't fire. He was waiting, hoping Crane would make a mistake. Etta was gambling now. No plan, no guarantee. But she'd seen something else in Crane's eyes beneath all that rage. Fear. "You want to live," she said. "Then let us go. You walk away. Say you couldn't find us. Say the trail went cold." He laughed dryly. "You think I get paid? For failure? No. But you'll get to live." She held his stare. Crane's fingers twitched around the pistol. Then, with a sudden yell, he lunged. Rafe fired. The bullet struck Crane square in the shoulder, spinning him sideways. The pistol went off, wild, cracking into the rocks. Etta threw herself over Jonah. Crane screamed, staggered, dropped the gun, but didn't fall. He turned, fury ripping across his face, and charged blindly into the rocks. Rafe stood and fired. Again, missed. Crane vanished into the ridge, stumbling, bleeding, half crazed, but gone. And then, quiet. Etta didn't move at first. Her hands were locked around Jonah's trembling body, her chest heaving against his back. "I'm okay," the boy whispered. "I'm okay." She kissed the crown of his head. Then finally, she stood. Rafe came limping down from the bluff. His temple was crusted red with blood, his rifle smoking, one hand pressed tight to his side. "You all right?" he asked. Etta nodded. "You?" "Shot my last round. But I got him. He's not dead." "Doesn't matter," Rafe said. "He's bleeding, and now he's scared." She turned to Jonah. "Can you walk?" He nodded fiercely, and together, the three of them limped down into the canyon, away from the blown cave, away from the grave they'd made for Calder Wren's secrets. The sky was pink with dawn. They didn't speak again until midday. They stopped under the skeleton of an old telegraph tower, dry wood and rusted wire creaking in the wind. Etta finally collapsed against a post, drawing Jonah close beside her. Rafe dropped down across from them, groaning. "Well," he muttered, "you were right." "About?" That box wasn't just wood and nails. No, Etta said, staring at the horizon. It wasn't. Silence. Then, do you still have it? Rafe asked. Jonah looked at Etta. She hesitated, then nodded. From her coat, she drew out the real box, the one Jonah had hidden from even her. Rafe sat up straighter. You're sure? Etta pried at the seam. It didn't budge. No lock, she muttered. Try pressing the sides. She did. There was a faint click, and then it opened. Inside, wrapped in layers of faded linen, was a thin stack of papers. Not gold, not jewels, just old parchment stained with ink and time. Rafe leaned closer. What is it? Etta unfolded one page. It was a map, but not of land, of names, connections, ledgers, signatures, lines drawn between banks, rail companies, land purchases, government names, stamped seals, a network of power, old and buried, stretching across the Western Territories like veins under skin. Rafe let out a low whistle. This could topple men, or blackmail them. Etta said softly. Calder never wanted riches. He wanted leverage. He was going to use this. Etta shook her head. He was going to bury it. Then why give it to you? She looked at Jonah, then back at Rafe. Because he knew someone would come. Someone who didn't care about secrets, only power. And he wanted the right person to find it first. She folded the papers again, tucked them back inside. Jonah sat beside her, silent. Now what? Rafe asked. We keep moving, she said. Somewhere quiet, safe. And the box? We decide who needs to see it, and who never can. Rafe nodded. They stood. The map in her pocket felt heavier than any weapon, but it was hers now, and so was the choice. As they walked into the sunset, Etta didn't look back. The territory behind her was scorched and broken, full of ghosts and graves. But ahead, just ahead, was something new. Maybe not peace, but the chance to build something better, and she wouldn't let go of that for anything.